Greetings and salutations, and welcome to another edition of the YouTube channel Too Many Plugins. I'm your host Alex. Today we're going to tackle a question of one of my viewers that it's actually a very common thing that happens, and it's actually a very good question. One of the comments mentioned it. It's a good question. I have a PC, portable or a desktop or something, and I want to install an operating system, Windows or Linux. And in this case, this person has Windows 10 and he wants to dual boot. So install Linux Mint next to it. By the way, big disclaimer, on the same hard drive, I don't recommend multi-booting, dual booting. Not always, you can be lucky, but you can also run into really issues. And that's especially when you use programs that are time synced. Windows and Linux maintains the time and date in a different way and synchronize that in a different way. And when you have two partitions, one with Windows and one with Linux, that are themselves maintaining time even when they're in a power off state, then you can run into all sorts of issues. I know this also because if I ever used Linux or Windows, I sometimes got really strange time issues with certain internet services, and also with radio amateur programs where we send each other over the radio frequency, so over the air through antennas, we send each other radio signals. And then we use GS8 call, which is a program that you can then write each other it's sort of a chat program, but that goes through amateur radio. That we transmit then a signal to other radio stations, and they have then the same software, and then they can read what we write over there. So it's just a chat little service where you can talk over the air with each other, but still send each other text messages, and you can even send each other pictures if you want by using SSTV, so it's slow scan radio. But those programs, they also need to sync the time all the time over the internet. Your time needs to be quite accurate, otherwise the other station cannot read your messages. Because when we transmit, then we would be transmitting over each other. So you have a little bar with a time bar that's all the time going, and in the end of each time bar of so many seconds, you can transmit. So the stations can sync with each other. Basically, that's the way it works. And if you have dual booted, then your time will completely be out of whack if you have a Windows 10 also installed over there. So that is an issue of dual booting. But also just the issue of you can just turn in a situation where something goes wrong in the booting, or with the two partitions you have running of NTFS Windows and then X4 FAT32 two partitions that Linux uses, you can just sometimes from one moment to the other run into a situation that you turn your computer on and that or Windows doesn't work anymore or Linux doesn't work anymore or both of them don't work anymore. So I do not recommend dual booting on the same hard drive. Attention, if you have two different hard drives, one with Windows and one with Linux, it's completely different. There's no issue like that then whatsoever. But when you run it from the same hard drive, you can run into all sorts of issues. So I strongly recommend not to dual boot. I know that Linux have it integrated and it's one of the first options in the installer. But check out Joe Collins' video about that, also about dual booting Windows with Linux. Joe Collins is also very up there in the Linux world, and he, just as me and many other people who work in IT, and can tell you all that dual booting on the same hard drive is not a good idea. It's a bad idea. So big disclaimer over there. But his question was the next question, and it is a good question, this, and this happened to me already many times. I got computers like that. Portables or desktop, it doesn't matter. Did you get a computer that doesn't have a DVD drive or a CD drive, or it doesn't boot from the CD or the DVD drive, or many computers that don't boot from USB? Some computers just have difficulty in booting from USB or just plain out refuse it. And that can be a real issue, because how are you going to install on a computer Windows or Linux if it doesn't boot from a USB pen or from a DVD drive? And that situation happened to me many times, even with recent computers that flat out refuse to boot from a USB pen and don't have a DVD drive anymore. When some older computers, they have a DVD drive, but then the drive is a little bit wanky, or it just refuses to boot from the DVD drive, or you maybe made there was an error in recording the DVD that you burned with the operating system. So these are things that all can happen, and there are solutions for that. But what you have to do then, there's several solutions, both for Windows and for Linux. There's something you can do that works with Windows 10 many times very well, and with recent Linuxes also. It's just plainly taking the hard drive from that computer out of that computer and install it in another computer. Install on the other computer, you install Windows 10 or Linux, and then put the hard drive back into the other computer. And most of the times that just works, especially because many modern Linuxes and especially Windows 10 have most basic drivers already there, and after that we'll get the rest of the drivers through updates. So that is one solution that many times works. The other solution is that's a little bit more, how do you call that? A little bit more advanced you have to go. Big warning, you have to work with partitions. So that can be an issue, that partitions. When you create or you resize or you modify partitions, there's always a risk that when you do that, that Windows or Linux doesn't work after that anymore. No matter how good IT technician you are, there can be corrupt things even on the hard drive. Something can go wrong. So always keep that in mind. When you repartition, resize, or create partitions, you can have a situation where the operating system doesn't boot anymore. But what you can do then is you can use a program like this. You can use UNetBootin. And that's a program for creating USB drives, but it can also write to hard drives. So if you see here, this is UNetBootin. You can here select which Linux version you want to download, or you can just go to disk image and select an image you already downloaded, like a Linux Mint. Then over here it says type USB drive. You can change this, and you can change this to a hard drive, and then you can select here which hard drive you want to use. That is a way of installing it. So you download then this program, UNetBootin. You can straight download here many versions of Linux from this list. There's many Ubuntu, Linux Mint, also versions over here. Or you can yourself download it. And then you can change the USB drive to hard drive. And then you can select the hard drive you want to install it in. And then from after that, you have to then reboot and boot from that hard drive. And then most of the times you then get just a normal Linux installer. And you can then just boot from there. And then you get to the Linux desktop. And from there you can just install and just to follow the instructions of the Linux installer. On Windows, this doesn't work. This is because Windows cannot, like Linux, can run from a USB pen or from a DVD drive. You can go in the operating system and run Linux without being installed in your computer. Windows doesn't work like that. So in Windows, you can do by yourself is creating a FAT32 partition. And then after that, you select here the hard drive that you have, and then select here and write here to your hard drive, to the FAT32 partition. You can then, how do you call that, write the Windows installer over there. But if you want to do that, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If you then boot from that directory, that you can then you get the Windows loader, but then it doesn't go into Windows. You have to then just go through the normal installation, like when you do a clean installation when you boot from a DVD or from a USB pen, and you have to then follow the instructions. But then you have to also create an NTFS drive that Windows can install itself on afterwards. The only issue with that is that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And there's another issue with it also. You have to, after that, also remove the FAT32 partition of Windows once you're done. And with Linux, by the way, also. Once you're done with all of this, to install it like this directly to the hard drive without ever using a USB pen or a DVD drive, don't forget that you have to eliminate. In Linux, it's not so necessary, but if you do it with Windows, then you should really, after it is installed, you should remove that partition, because otherwise you get also issues. So that's the same as installing Windows and keeping your USB pen always in there with the Windows installation, or the DVD with the Windows. That's not good if you keep on booting with that. So, but that you can do over here. So here you see USB drive is 3, but you can change this to hard drive, and then you can just install the installer directly to your hard drive, and then boot from that hard drive. So there's another solution also. That's Rufus. Rufus is only for Windows, if I'm not wrong. Rufus does also this kind of thing. Let me see if you can also change here the drive you wanna write to. Yeah, you can over here. You can change the device you wanna write to. So you can change this to a hard drive. Don't forget in Rufus to here add fix for old BIOS. Mark this over here. That's also very. You can also show advanced format options, so you can still format things before you start, and that's also a way of doing that. Both programs are a little bit the same, only this one doesn't have the function here for installing. How do you call that? Directly downloading Ubuntu. So in this program, you have to have the ISO, the Linux or Windows installation already ready, downloaded, and then you select it over here. List of USB hard drives, and you can format option over here and change here your drive. This is now to Ubuntu 8 gigabytes USB pen, but you can change this to your hard drive partition, and you can also change the partition scheme from MBR to GPT if it's necessary. So and target system BIOS or UEFI. That's the way you can also do that. It's not so easy in this, but you can do it with this one also. So what you then just actually do, you're just bypassing the whole thing of needing a USB drive or a DVD drive to install Windows or Linux. So there you go. Also, by the way, very complicated. Partitions, working with partitions. And especially partitions on the same hard drive, very quickly, if you modify, resize partitions, or it's complicated. Be very careful with what you do, because, and especially with multi-booting, if you do something wrong with creating partitions or resizing partitions, or even with UNet booting, or with this tool also, if you do something wrong over here, you can also create yourself a no boot situation. So really know what you're doing, understand really where your drives are, where you're gonna write to, and all that kind of stuff. I many times like the other option more, just another PC, even an older one that you just use to an older laptop or an older desktop, that you just temporarily stick the drive in there, the hard disk drive, and then install it in there, and then mount it then back to the other computer. That is many times works pretty flawlessly. And otherwise use these options over here, like I told you, with Rufus and with UNet booting, to install directly to a USB, to a hard drive. So that's what it says over here. It's in Portuguese, but here it says you can, if you want to write to a hard drive or directly to a USB pen, and that's a selection over here. Type USB hard drive or normal hard drive, and then which drive it is, A, B, C, D, whatever the drive letter name is. And that you can bypass all of that. You need to have a running system, of course. You need to have some computer that is running still Windows or Linux. If you are in a situation where your computer is not even running anything anymore, and you cannot boot from USB pen or from DVD or CD drive, then you are a little bit farther away from home. And then again, I recommend to take that hard drive out of there, stick it in another computer, install Windows or Linux on that other computer, and then mount it back in the other system. So, but there you go. Complications and things about formatting and about dual booting and about installing Windows and Linux can be complicated, especially with newer computers and computers that refuse to boot from USB or CD, DVD, how do you call it, devices. Anyway, thanks for listening. I'll check you in the next one. Stay safe, take care. Until the next time.